Welcome to Urban Knife Guy, where we explore the urban knife style and jungle survival. Today we're going to review the 8-inch Duku Candong from Pahang Lipis Chap Dal, which I will refer to as Pahang Lipis henceforth. Pahang Lipis is based out of Pahang, a state in central eastern Peninsula Malaysia. This Duku Candong imitates the design of a traditional Duku Candong but has a less pronounced curve and uses some modern construction methods. If you want to learn all about the different types of parang styles, do check out my video on the introduction to modern Malaysian parangs in the link in the card above or the description below. Pahang Lipis makes a wide variety of parangs, but for the Duku Candong specifically, they offer an 8-inch, 10-inch and 12-inch version. This parang has an 8-inch blade. So let's talk about the blade first. While the parang is marketed as an 8-inch parang, the blade is actually 8.5 inches long. It has a sheep's foot style blade head, and similar to the traditional Duku Candong, it has a curved blade that is slightly wider in the front. The blade steel for this parang is S53 steel, which is a carbon steel. Now, the product information for Pahang Lipis states that S53C is a high carbon steel, but that depends on what metrics you use to determine high carbon steel. Some sources state that a steel needs to have at least 0.5% of carbon content to be considered high carbon. Other sources state that a steel requires at least 0.6% to be considered high carbon. S53C is a China steel and has about 0.55% of carbon, so it is either a very hard medium carbon steel or a very soft high carbon steel. Regardless, I would consider this a budget steel for a parang. I'm not sure if this is recycled steel, but it looks to me that the blade is hand ground as opposed to hand forged and hammered based on the striations on the blade. And here is the Lipis brand mark etched onto the blade. Based on information provided by the manufacturer, the blade is heat treated with differential hardening. That means that different parts of the blade has different hardness. So the spine is harder for strength, but the blade and handle is less hard but tougher so that it does not break or chip. The grind is a convex grind, which is common for parangs. This is similar to the grind on axes so that they are all effective cutting tools. The blade was very sharp out of the box, but I did strop it a few times to get it razor sharp. The width of the blade is just over 2 inches at its widest point, and the blade thickness is 4.5 mm. As with traditional parangs, the base of the blade is unsharpened. This is so that you can choke up on the knife for finer work like carving or feather sticking. The blade construction is stick tang or a rat tail tang. That means the end of the blade tapers down to a narrow tail and extends into the handle for about 2.5 to 3 inches. There is a copper collar around the neck of the knife and the handle, and there is a brass pin. This is a retaining pin that goes through the collar, through the wood, through the blade, and through the other side. Now, this is a safety feature so that if the stick tang blade does go loose, it will not fly out of the handle. I discussed the parang stick tang construction in a previous video that you can watch in the link in the card above or the description below. The handle, or hulu in Malay, is made from ringgas, also known as Borneo rosewood or tiger ringgas. The handle is 5.5 inches long and the overall length of the parang is 14 inches long. Let's see how heavy this parang is. So the weight in grams is about 363 grams, and in ounces, that's 12.8 ounces. The parang comes with a kydex sheath. Kydex is a thermoplastic that is molded around the parang. There are rivet holes on the edges of the sheath, but they seem to be randomly spaced. The universal standard is supposed to be 1.5 inches. There is a drainage hole on the end of the sheath, which is a good design feature. In the tropical climate, it rains quite a bit, and if you're out in the field, rain can leak down into the sheath, so this drainage hole helps to make it easier to draw out and clean. There's also a belt loop made from the same kydex material, which is kind of riveted on this piece of kydex that's wrapped around the sheath. Now I will share my thoughts on this 8-inch Duku Candong. I should highlight that my review is from the perspective of a hiker, camper, and bushcrafter, not as a farmer or gardener who have different needs. I chose the 8-inch Duku Candong as I wanted a lightweight parang that would be easy to carry for hikes. I also view the parang as an all-purpose primary knife in a 2 or 3 knife system, so it has to be manageable to use practically. Overall, the build quality is decent but not great. The fit and finish is lacking compared to other brands like My Parang and Parang Tantari. But I should mention that the Parang Lipis parangs are much cheaper than the other 2 brands. The price of the 8-inch parang is 170 ringgit, which is roughly 42.50 US dollars. The 10-inch costs 210 ringgit, which is roughly 52.50 US dollars, and the 12-inch costs 240 ringgit, which is 60 US dollars. So the Parang Lipis parangs are about 20 to 30% cheaper than the Parang Tantari and My Parang products. But personally, I think there's no excuse for some of the shortcomings of the parang. Here are several things that stood out to me. The edges of the blade are very rough. They could have been smoothened out a bit better. So the grind for the surface here is quite good, but the edges here are very rough. It just doesn't feel very polished and finished. The collar is slanted. It's not perfectly put on, and the epoxy application is also not very neat. As you can see, there's a lot of residue, gum or epoxy. I think they use a combination of both glue and epoxy here. Now, as a parang, it does function well. At a basic level, it can chop, cut, slice, and perform all the normal camping and bushcraft tasks. You have no problems there whatsoever. The unsharpened base of the blade also allows you to choke up on the knife for fine work, and you can even use it to strike a ferro rod to light tinder to make a fire. But this is just not a satisfying parang to use or own, if that makes sense. First, I find the handle a little too short. I cannot get a full 4-finger grip on the handle because of the butt end. You can see my little finger here really is just resting on. I can't get a good purchase. So it's really only a good 3-finger grip. And I have small to medium-sized hands. So this straight shaft here of the handle should be at least 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch longer. Another issue is the kydex sheath. Again, the sheath is functional and can do its job, but the quality of the kydex seems inferior, or maybe it's just thinner than other kydex sheaths I'm used to. It feels like it cannot stand up to much abuse, but of course that is just my conjecture. But this belt loop, this looks really fragile. I'm confident that this will not stand up to hard use. It will break at any of these bend points, or maybe the rivets will fail at any of these points. Then the whole holder system fails. The sheath, may be due to the thinness of the material, also does not have a really good grip on the parang. Now, while it appears to fit quite well, it is not a firm grip. And as you can see, it's possible for that parang to fall out of the sheath, especially when on the move for a hike, climbing a mountain, or maybe you just have a fall and this could slide out. Now, the solutions to this include using a thicker material for the sheath, extending the kydex sheath to hold more of the handle, and having a tighter fit around the blade itself. So all these, I think, are improvements that can be made to make this a better fit for the sheath. This parang has potential, and the Parang Lipis as a brand has potential if they just do better quality control and maintain higher standards. It is things like the unfinished edges, the slanted collar, and the unequal distance rivet holes for these sheath that show there's little quality control. Resolving all these small but significant issues will increase the fit and finish and overall quality of the parang. And if Parang Lipis can address some of the design issues, such as the handle length, the kydex sheath loop design, and that secure fit on the parang, they will actually have a good higher-end product. They could even raise their prices, or if they maintain their prices, more people will buy the products because they would be of better value, even when compared to the other brands. At this point, I would not recommend getting a Parang Lipis parang unless you just want a functional tool that can get the job done, or you're on a tight budget. But if fit and finish and design issues are important to you, then I would say spend a bit more and get a Parang Tantari or My Parang. However, if Parang Lipis does up their game, they can be a serious contender. I'll provide links to dealers that carry Parang Lipis in the video description, and you can check if they'll ship to your country if you're not based in Malaysia. I hope you enjoyed this review of the Parang Lipis Duku Candong. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more Parang reviews and videos on tropical jungle survival, do subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.